What is going on YouTube? Patrick here, and in today's video I'm going to be taking you through 10 common used electronic items that you can sell either from thrift stores or from garage sales. You can sell online on eBay for a profit, maybe even on other platforms such as Facebook Marketplace or maybe even on Amazon. I have specific experience with eBay, so that's really what I'm going to be focusing on today. That's where all my comps are going to be coming from. If we haven't met, my name is Patrick. I'm in Connecticut, and I am a part-time reseller. I do still have a 9-to-5 corporate job that I work on Monday through Friday. But in my spare time, I started doing eBay about 10 years ago. Helps pay some of the bills, helps me be able to play poker in my spare time, that kind of thing. And even really go on a nice vacation once or twice a year and just be able to pay for it out of these profits. So I think this educational video would be able to help you do the same thing. So with that in mind, I'm going to scoot over and pop up some comps up here. The first category really that I want to talk about is wireless phones. This is kind of new to me in the last year or two. I haven't sold a ton of these, but they're definitely out there. I'm finding them more and more often. And so what I did was went and did the research, right? What brands am I going to be looking for? What do I need to be looking for as far as quality? What do I need to look for? Numbers, other kinds of things like that. What I found out is if you can get at least 3 of the headsets, the handsets, whatever you call them, and a couple different brands, you're going to be doing all right. So the first one I put up there is Panasonic. Looked like from the comps on eBay, and then if you've got a store subscription, you'll have access to Terapeak. You can look at the last year of solds in Terapeak and see what the trends have been. But Panasonic, 3 or more handsets, so you can go 3 or 4, or if there's even more in the set, you're going to be doing all right. And then any of the newer stuff, of course, that's a little bit easier, but even some of the older stuff, if you can find 3 or 4 of them, you can see in the comps, there's a few of them in there, they're $40, $50, but there's also a couple in like the $15 to $20 range. So just kind of be careful with how much you're willing to pay for these. Second comp I want to put up there, Uniden. Similar as the Panasonic, 3 or 4 handsets, you're going to be doing pretty good. This one a little bit better, right? The first 3 comps up there are all over about $30. One of them has free shipping, and then one of them's at about $12. So again, be a little bit careful here. Pay as low as you can, of course, but you're going to be doing all right with Uniden, with the Uniden brand. And then the third one on here, AT&T. I've actually didn't see any that were in the 3 range that looked pretty good. So I'd say focus on 4 handsets or more. But you can see in the comps there's a few of them that have free shipping, but anywhere from $30 up, you're probably going to be doing okay with AT&T. Definitely with any of these, more handsets equal more money. So that's what you're going to be looking for. Some of the missteps here. Batteries, right? A lot of these are going to be missing the batteries from the handsets, whether they got corroded maybe, or if it was not like rechargeable like AAA batteries. You may see the ones that plug in that are like a one piece of a battery, and they may have also gone bad at some point, so people will throw those away. So I've got like a drawer full of batteries, and then I picked up some rechargeable AAAs. Those are easy, just plug in some new ones, you can ship them out. But for the other ones, sometimes you're going to be out of luck. You may just have to try and sell them without the batteries, which is going to hurt your sale value quite a bit, honestly. So just be on the lookout for that, and you should be doing okay. All right, next category, DVD VHS players. This is, I would put this into the category of a reseller's bread and butter item. They're not super common, but they're pretty common, you guys. I find these things all the time. But it's really funny. I'll go through like a big dry spell for a couple weeks and there won't be any. And then all of a sudden in one day, I'll find 3 or 4 of them. It's just kind of the way it goes. So the first one I put up there, you can see is, honestly, I think I've got 3 comps to show you on this one as well. This one was, I just said no recorder. You can see that in my comp, I said negative recorder. So that's how I searched for it. And you can see there's Sanyo, Sony, Magnavox, Samsung, Toshiba, right? All of these are in the $30 plus, maybe even a little bit more. The Sony one there was $100 free shipping. Sony is always going to be a good brand. Like if you see those, pick it up. And then something that will increase the value is going to be having the remote. Unfortunately, I find remotes on about 1 in 10 of these. So right, they're not going to be very common. All right, second comp, I added recorder into it. And you can see the price skyrockets, you guys. Not for every single one of these brands, right? The JVC is not super great, and even the Samsung is not super amazing. But you can see the Toshiba, the Magnavox. I didn't even have a Sony on here, but the Sony would also be fantastic, you guys. The recorder is going to be really, really good. And then let's see, the third comp here, I decided to include VCRs in this category as well, just because they've really been they've been an up-and-coming category. And so I've got a couple in here. There's a Sony and a Toshiba in there that sold at $50. I've been doing really well with VCRs as well, you guys. Again, with the remote, you guys are going to be doing much better, but a lot of the brands you're going to be able to find and do pretty good. Now, the thing to look with VCRs is stereo. Looking on the back, you're going to see the RCA cables, which the little plugs you plug them into, they're going to be colored yellow, white, and red. So if you see yellow, that's the video, and then red and white are going to be the audio. If it's going to be stereo, it's going to have both red and white, and if it's not stereo, it'll be just white. So if you can find the stereo ones, those are going to be doing a little bit better. Now, I've had some luck with the non-stereo or mono VCRs, but you really want to focus on the stereo. You're going to be doing much better there. Very similar to everything else. Sell it for, or buy it as low as possible, right? $5 to $10 at most, I would say. Unless it's a recorder, then you can probably pay up for it. The problem here, though, you guys, is that about 1 in 3, 1 in 4 of these are not going to work. I used to think it was, oh, it's just going to be the VHS side, but that's not true. Sometimes I'll get the VHS side that works, and then it's the DVD side that does not work. That's always a bad day. But you sometimes can list these for repair, parts repair. Specifically the recorders, you're still going to be able to sell those. Most of the time, VCRs and the DVD VHS combo players, not going to do great, or it's going to be a super, super slow mover. If you've got the space, if you've got the storage room, all that stuff, go for it. I tend to just take these out, pop them in the dumpster, and just throw them away. Just get them out of my house. It's not worth my space personally. All right, item number 3. This is going to be the category of cameras. So I'm going to do some video cameras and some point and shoots. So the first one up is these little handy cams. Right, they're usually fit right in your hand, but they're a little bit older, right? It'll take a tape, maybe it'll take a disc. Now, the newer stuff is going to take an SD card, so that's how you're going to be able to tell the difference, is that it's got a bay for a tape to go into. And you can see right at the top of the comp I have here, this is specifically Sony. Wow, $150 plus shipping, you guys. And this is 20 to 30 years old probably, something like that. And going down the list, all of these are in the 150 range. There's even one on there for 200. All of these are going to be really good sellers in this for Sony brand. Like I mentioned with the wireless phones at the beginning, Sony is a good brand. You guys can focus there for sure in almost all of these electronics categories. All right, next one is going to be a point and shoot. So Nikon, surprisingly, right, this is a point and shoot 35 millimeter. These started to go up in price, I would say about within the last 2 years, something like that. And again, it's not all brands. Like some of the junky, like I would call them cheapo Walmart, Radio Shack brands, that kind of thing. Those aren't doing very well. But some of the Nikons, the Canons, that kind of thing, are going to be doing well all of a sudden. And by well, they're selling anywhere from $20 up. I've had a few sell in anywhere from $80 to $120. And you can see on the comps up here, just for Nikon, I searched Nikon One Touch because this is one of the ones that I sold. That one sold for $78, and then there's another one on here for like $40 free shipping. That says mostly untested, right? That's going to be the case with a lot of this stuff, is if you don't have the film to test this, it's hard to say it's working. Sometimes you can just list it and say that you don't mention it either way. That may be a good way to get around it. And you're gonna have some returns with this stuff. Honestly, you are. That's kind of the reseller's life, honestly. All right, the next one that I put up on here is, let's see here, Nikon point and shoot, right? I switched over from the specific Nikon One Touch to just point and shoots. And you can see some of these 35 millimeters are just amazing value. I would say very similar to the one we just went through. And then there's Canon doing the same thing, right? In the $30, $50, $80 for Canon. And then Minolta is another good brand in this category. All right. So to round it out, let's see here. Trying to go through my comps quickly without skipping anything. We'll round it out with some more of these Camcorders. Panasonic is another good brand you want to look up. You can see the comps here, not quite as good as the Sony, but they're doing all right. You can also look into like a JVC, and there's a couple other brands out there. And for the most part, they're going to sell anywhere from $30 up. I've sold a few of these in anywhere from the $150 to $200 range. Very similar to the VCRs. You're going to find some of these that just do not work. The other kind of, I would call hiccup in this category, batteries. The batteries are almost always going to be dead. Or they're not going to come with a charger. So you're going to be, Amazon's going to be your best friend, getting a new battery for these things, getting a new charger for these things. A lot of the, I don't know, I would call them like Chinese sourced products for these, like people are making replacement products for them. You can get like a combo pack that comes with a charger and maybe one or two batteries. They're usually going to run you anywhere from $10 to $20. That sounds like a lot, right? But when you're talking a $100, $200 video camera, you're probably going to be doing all right with that. So that is the camera category. Next category, I think this isn't going to be a surprise to some people out there, but maybe it is to you. Video games. This was the first thing I started reselling, you guys. This was the only thing that I was doing when I first started 10 years ago. And I was able to do it for about 3 years before that it just dried up. And I think it was that so many people were finding out how much value was in these old video games that it just became oversaturated. So I still do pretty well here, but just not as well as I used to do. So the first comp I've got up there is Wii. So we're going to start with consoles, and then we'll get into some games as well. But that's something that a lot of people I think are overlooking is console bundles. So you look up, you find all these games, and some of them just aren't worth a lot, right? They may be worth $2, $3, $4, something like that. I try to focus around $10, maybe $15, something like that. Probably free shipping as a minimum. That otherwise, it's just not worth my time to get it maybe tested, pictured, listed, shipped, right? All that work for $5. It doesn't really make sense a lot of times when I'm part-time. But what I'll do is I'll save all of these common games and get the systems at the same time a lot of times, and then around Christmas time, of course, it's a good time of year to do this, bundle them. Make a bundle with a Wii and maybe 5 to 10 games or something like that, right? A bunch of controllers, and they usually sell really well. So you can see on the comp I put up here with the Wii, these are getting kind of old now as far as when the comps were done, but you can see like anywhere from $50 up to $100. There's I think just a system with a controller on there for like $50 free shipping, and then the bundles, like those are going to be doing a lot better. We'll go through the other kind of similar generation to the Wii, these are your kind of more common consoles right now. Xbox 360. And you can see these bundles, each of them's got a couple controllers, it's got a couple of games, selling anywhere from like $70 all the way up over $100. And then going into some games. Pokemon. This is an easy one, you guys. Just remember Pokemon games have value. If you see them and you can get them for a reasonable price, pick them up. They can sell anywhere from $20 up to, I've sold a couple at $100. They're pretty crazy. Mario Brothers, another good one, right? There's on all the different Nintendo systems have at least one Mario Brothers game. Be careful. There's also some other categories like Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, and some of those are going to do well and some of them aren't. But for the most part, they are going to do well. So you'll be okay picking those up as well. So definitely some games, what I would call, or the category of Japanese role-playing games or Japanese RPGs or even JRPGs. It's going to be a Final Fantasy. There's going to be a bunch of those out there. You're not going to see these very often, you guys, but if you do, pick them up, right? You'll if you start to look at the different covers of these games, you'll start to be able to tell which ones they are. They tend to have more of that anime or Japanimation or manga look to them. That's going to be the designs on a lot of the covers, and a lot of those can go for some really crazy money. But bread and butter, definitely Mario games, and then there's definitely a lot more games out there to look. I encourage you to go out and do some research on this. You will find video games, just kind of depends on when it's going to be. The other couple common systems out there, PlayStation 3, and then Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS are out there. You're going to find those as well, and all those are going to be doing pretty well for you. All right, something a little less common, and used to be very common, honestly, starting to get a little less common. Handheld voice recorders, anywhere from the digital ones to even the ones that hold the small little micro cassette tapes. This was honestly one of the first categories I expanded into when I started to be overrun with other video resellers out there, video game resellers out there. So I started just buying these when I saw them. And again, they're getting less common, but I'm still finding, I don't know, one every 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. Definitely the digital ones are starting to become more common. but the tape ones are still out there. You can see in the comps on here, I've got a kind of a mix of both of them. With a Panasonic, that's a digital one at the top there. Then the next Panasonic is a microcassette one. Then the next one down is an Olympus. All right, so Panasonic, Olympus, Sony. Those are going to be your big names. There's a couple others out there where you're going to be doing all right, probably very similar, right? A JVC, something like that. But that is definitely something to look out for. I'll put up another comp up here on the screen really quickly. Yeah, you're looking at that one correctly. $1,500, you guys. This is my best flip ever. I paid somewhere around $1. I don't even know. I was at a garage sale after lunch. I asked the lady if she had any video games. She did. So she was like throwing a bunch of stuff in a box, and she says, you know what? It's late in the day. Whatever you put in this box, $40 total. And I was like, okay. So I wandered around the sale, found this thing on the table, and I just tossed it in the box. Didn't even think about it. I was like, you can see the comps up there, probably like 20 bucks. Like, that's pretty good for getting into it cheap. And I got home and I looked up the model number, and I had to clear my cookies and start again. I just did not believe the results that I saw. So did it again. Sure enough, it came up. And with this one, this is I wouldn't call it once in a lifetime, but it is super rare. You're probably not going to find this one. I'm probably never going to find another one either. This was one of the ones they used on the Ghost Hunters TV show. For whatever reason, I don't know the technology or what they get into, but it can tune into ghost frequencies. I don't even know, you guys. But it didn't matter. Somebody was willing to pay me the money, and I was happy to sell it to them for that amount. And yeah, it to date is my best flip ever. All right, next category here. This one, I don't know if you guys are going to be believing me on this one or not. I think even my wife Amber is still kind of disbelieving quite a bit. But old vintage slide projectors, right? This is the ones where you have to have your slides put into a format like this. Your pictures put into these slide formats, right? The old photography shops used to do it for you. When you got your film developed, they would transition those into slides if you wanted. And then college professors were doing this. People were doing it from their vacations. And so a bunch of, we'll call them vintage people, still have collections of these slides and maybe want to watch them or look at them, something like that. Or it maybe they want to do it for a specific presentation. They want to show some of the old technology. Not really sure. But you can see in the comps up here that they range anywhere from like $50 for that Kodak one at the top there, all the way going down the list, $100. There's even one down at the bottom that was $30. I would say focus on Kodak here, you guys. The Leica there, you can see it did sell for $100, but it's just not one of the more common ones you're going to find. The Kodaks you're going to find, I find them all the time, honestly. Probably every other week, something like that. And usually selling them anywhere from like $80 all the way up to like $150, and usually including shipping. So I actually sold one a couple days before filming this video, sold it for $100 plus shipping. So really great. Usually people want to get rid of them. So like you're going to be paying $5, $10 maybe. The hard part with these, a lot of them are going to come with a bunch of those carousels that hold the slides. If you get them and they have slides in it, that's kind of like a little subset you can do here. You can sell the slides separately if you feel comfortable. A lot of people aren't going to be interested in selling somebody else's old vacation photos, but if they're vintage, like we're selling old black and white photos, I think of it the same way, where it's just photos. And so yeah, you can make lots of them. They don't sell for a ton of money, but maybe $10 to $20 for a nice sized lot of them. All right, up next, this next category here is streaming devices. Probably Apple TV isn't going to be a huge surprise to you guys, but I've got a couple other in here. We'll start with the Apple TV. And you can see, it depends on the generation. There have been, I think, 5 generations of these now. The first one was white, so that one's really easy. Stay away from that one, you guys. Generations 2 and 3 they started to get into that small black format. And then generations 4 and 5 were the small format, but they were taller. That's how you can kind of tell these different generations apart. And you can see the difference up here, right? The third generation going for maybe $30, maybe $25 free shipping. And then once you get into Gen 4, the price goes way up, $80. And I think that's actually come down since I took this screenshot. Since Generation 5 is now out there, that's going to be commanding a lot of the more high prices. But Gen 4 is still doing pretty good reasoning because it does 4K, which is going to be about the best as you're going to get out there today in your televisions. But for Apple TVs, I don't find these a ton, but when you see them, you know them. The thing to look out for here is try and get the remote control if you can. If not, Apple, you can buy them from them, or you can get even a third-party one to replace them. For the newer Gen ones, that's going to be worth it. For the older ones, it may not be worth it. Number 2 on here, Roku. You guys can see this is going to be more of a bread and butter item. What I mean there is that you're going to find this more frequently. Pay as little as you can for these things. You can see that they're only selling for anywhere from like $15 to $20, maybe free shipping. Again, you're going to want to get the remote for these things for sure. And then number 3 on here, the Google Chromecast. This one looks kind of funny because it's got like a disc and then a cord that you plug in. Doesn't look like it would work really well with your television, but people are still using them. So yeah, definitely very similar to the Roku. Get them as cheap as possible. You're going to be finding these a little bit more frequently. I find them at thrift stores and at garage sales kind of constantly, and usually they want anywhere from $5 to $10 for them. I would say $5 is probably about the best price you want to, or the most you really want to pay for them. And then the final one on here is the Amazon Fire Stick, and it's going to go into the same classification as those last two. Just not a huge price tag on there. The Apple one is going to be the one that's the big money, but these things are going to be things you can find and resell usually pretty fast. So definitely something to be on the lookout for. All right, item number 8, MP3 players. We would probably think of this as like an iPod, and we'll do that as well in here, but there's also a couple other brands that do pretty good. You can see the SanDisk, I think it's SanDisk, Sansa. Those do pretty great. I've actually found a couple of these brand new and been able to sell those. Brand new is always really good, I think. But even some of these that are not brand new still sell pretty well. Most of the time you're thinking the iPod, right? That's what you're thinking about, you want to look for. iPods 100% have retained their value. The thing with those, sometimes the batteries are going to be dead. Even with all of these different categories, you may try to charge them up and the batteries are just never going to work. Sometimes you can sell them for parts, still for pretty good money. And if not, collect all the ones that you found throughout the season maybe, or maybe in a year, throw them in a box, and then at the end of the year, put up an auction for all the ones you got left, or even a buy it now lot of them, and just say all as is, parts not working, and just get them out of there. But at that point, you can still recoup maybe some of the money you put into it. All right, so page 2, I told you that there would be a little bit more on here, more on Apple. You can see that these are more Apple focused. There's a couple others on here. The Creative is still pretty interesting. And then, of course, the watches, too. You guys can start to look for the watches. Similar to the actual iPods, the batteries are going to be dead potentially. So be on the lookout for these. You will find some Apples out there. I've even bought some of like the earlier generation ones. They're going to be more white in color. And those can do really well. Again, most of the time the batteries are going to be dead. So just pay attention to those. All right, next item on the list, stereos. This can go anywhere from a receiver where it's like a big shelf system to some of these smaller shelf systems. I started with the JVC shelf stereo because I have found these and sold these, I don't know, maybe a dozen times over the last few years. And you can see like that top one up there, the JVC FS 7000, sold for $85. Now, of course, it's got to have the wires, it's got to have the speakers, it's got to have all the cables, it's got to have the remote control, right? The remote control is going to be the thing that's probably missing the most. But even going down here, looking at the rest of these comps, there's a couple Sonys, there's a couple other JVC type things on here. Some of these other ones are going to do well also. The hard part with this stuff, you guys, is that generally they're going to be a little bit on the bigger side. So you're going to have to get comfortable shipping out some of these big items. And that's tough because sometimes things are going to want to shift around and break. So get comfortable with finding, the big tip that I have is pool noodles, right? Pick those up maybe at the dollar store. You can get a pool noodle for $1, cut it in half, and then you can pad the heck out of these things before they go in the box. Packing peanuts, bubble wrap, all of that stuff's going to be your best friend, and then just get comfortable with doing a big box. Of course, then the post office is not going to be your friend. So have to start branching out into FedEx and UPS potentially, and then your prices are going to be much better. You may have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit there, but you can see that there's definitely money to be made. People a lot of times have these systems and want them out of their house. And then if you find them at a thrift store, hey, you can even maybe plug it in and test it before you buy it and be able to pay up maybe a little bit for it if you know it's working. All right, second page here, Panasonic, Toshiba, Insignia. You can see there's all these different varieties of these things out there. And then I don't think I even included any comps for like any of their big receivers. Those things are heavy, you guys. But do some research there if you're interested. I think start with the smaller form factor shelf systems. Those are a pretty nice little thing you can add into your wheelhouse, and then maybe expand into the shelf receivers at some point. All right, this is number 10 on the list, so this is the last one today. Calculators. So some of the big ones, Texas Instruments, right? 84, 85, and then those are really the two you want to be on the lookout for. These are graphing calculators, used in high school math, maybe college math, something like that. A lot of times that they'll have to graph it, and then you have to draw the graph on your test, something like that. But TI-84, TI-85, you can see the comp up here for the 84, like 50, 60 bucks, something like that. Pay attention to school semesters because you're going to be able to command a higher price at the beginning of the school semesters for pretty much all of these graphing calculators. I'm going to include the TI-83 on here because it looks almost exactly like the 84 and 85, but you can see the prices go way down, probably about $20, $25. Free shipping is about the best you're going to get. And the hard part is you see it, your heart's going to just race and you're going to be like, I found one, and then you're going to see that 83. So be careful. A lot of people are going to be trying to charge the same prices, like $15, $20, $25 for these things as the 84s and 85s, and they're just not worth it, right? You're not going to have any room for profit on that price tag versus if you're able to get the 84, 85 at $20 and sell it at the beginning of the semester, you might be able to get that $50, $60, maybe even $70 free shipping for this thing. And $20 all of a sudden isn't so bad. All right, I also put in some vintage calculators. There is a wide breadth of this stuff in there. Most of the time it's going to be the scientific calculators. So you can see Hewlett-Packard, Casio, there's even some Texas Instruments stuff in here. And then going into, let's see here, into the next ones down here, there's definitely some big categories that you can be on the lookout. The hard part is there's also a lot of junk out there. So be a little bit careful about this. I would advise in this category, get your phone out, look up the model right on the spot. Just find out, is this one of those ones that Patrick told you about? Like I said, look out for scientific calculators, especially if they're a little bit older. You can see that some of these went for some big money. Even some of the newer stuff can still do pretty well if it says scientific on it. Usually as you start to get into seeing anything with a solar panel, it starts to get a little bit newer, and then that's going to start to get into more of your common stuff. People are looking to collect those vintage, really neat looking calculators. I'll pop another comp up here right now. This is one that I sold recently. The Royal Digital 3. This thing is crazy, you guys. I had never heard of this. It was made by a typewriter company. I picked up this and a whole box of other calculators from a guy in an estate sale probably a couple months ago before filming this video. And I think I ended up paying like $20 or $30 for everything. And you can see this one calculator sold for $80 plus shipping. So, right, this is vintage. I have no interest in like trying to figure this thing out at all. I plugged it in, tried to make sure it worked, and that was about it. And then I got it out the door. It did not work, by the way. And it still sold for $80. I think if it was working, I probably could have gotten about $200 for this thing. Maybe not. Who knows? It didn't work, so we'll never know. So that is it, you guys. We'll do a quick recap. 10 items that you can sell, 10 electronic items that you can sell that are commonly found. You can find these at thrift stores. You can find them at garage sales, estate sales, that kind of thing. So wireless phones, 3 brands, right? AT&T is the big one on that one, and then Sony. Sony through all of this stuff. We'll put a blanket Sony down. And then DVD, VHS, combo players, as well as VCRs. The third one we went through was cameras, so both the older tape-based handheld cameras, and then the point and shoot 35 millimeters are getting big. And then if you find any of the newer digital that run on SD cards, those can do really well also. Category 4, which I still don't think is going to be any surprise to a lot of you out there, video games. If it is new to you, do some work on this. You're going to find video games out there. Be sure you know what to look for, and don't be buying sports games. Item number 5 was voice recorders, whether it's the old micro cassette based or the newer digital, which means it's got like an onboard recording system. Item 6 was the vintage slide projectors, focus on Kodak. Item 7, streaming devices. Any of these things are going to do well, but the big money is going to be in the Apple. Item number 8, MP3 players. Again, Apple, you want to find Apple iPods, but some of the other ones you're going to find out there are going to be great. And then if you can find them brand new in the box, you're going to be doing really well. Item number 9, I would say shelf stereos, right? That's where you want to look at. There can even be some of the really small ones that don't have detachable speakers you can do well. One of the brands that we didn't talk about in this category is Bose. Bose is going to be doing well pretty much any form factor you find it in. And then item number 10 today was calculators. For sure, you want to be looking out for the TI-84s and 85s. Those are going to be graphing calculators. You can do well with the 83s if you can get them cheap enough. And then vintage scientific calculators. So I hope that you found this content helpful. If you had, smash that like button for me. And if you're interested, I also make videos where I talk about what I sold in the previous week, as well as live thrifting and live garage sales during garage sale season. So if you want to see some of that, be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you just wanted to watch, that's okay too. It was good to have you here. Once again, my name is Patrick, and thank you very much.